Assalamu alaikum and welcome to Perspective. China-Pakistan economic corridor and their recent developments regarding this, considering the fact the Prime Minister's new speech and also the fact that his recent claim that this will play a role not only in our regional politics but also internationally. Let's talk about all of that today. I have with me Hassn Daud Batsab, who is project director with the Planning Commission, Cpec. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Ameer Zafar Durrani Saab, who's a senior analyst. Thank you for giving us your time. And Javed Siddique Saab, who is a senior journalist. Thank you for joining us today. Hassn Saab, in your estimation, in your opinion, how do you see this mega project? Do you think that it will play as big a role not only in the regional politics as is the claim, but also internationally and globally for Pakistan and for the world?
Thank you, and I'm glad that you've started with this question. I was there along with the other members of the delegation in China during the 13th to 16th stay. Right. And Cpec and of course Pakistan remained center of attraction when there were more than 100 delegates and more than 30 head of states present there. So right. Pakistan remained center of attraction, to say the least. And I believe Gwadar was the only city mentioned by President Xi Jinping during his speech. So I believe Pakistan would become more important. Pakistan would play a key role as far as One Belt, One Road initiative is concerned. The economic growth that we are eyeing through Cpec would bring peace and prosperity, and we would play an important role in the region, surely.
Right, and also internationally, you think that
of course,
make a lot of impact for us. Ameer Saab, it's true that mostly people agree that this is a project with a huge potential for Pakistan, for the region also. But in your opinion, there have been a lot of talk, negative talk about it. There has been some propaganda against it also, to which, not very long ago, Hassn Iqbal also had to say that this negative propaganda should be banned, and they should, that this is a huge potential. It has a huge potential. It has the capability of changing things economically for Pakistan. So that shouldn't be there. In your opinion, how accurate is it? What is the truth? What is the reality? How do you see things?
Well, I think first and foremost, I have to agree that Pakistan is the pilot for the Belt and Road Initiative, which is what it's now called. It started with the Shanghai Cooperation Organization many years ago.
Right.
And so I think that when you come to the economic interplay, I think that one has to tread with caution. The reason for that is very simple for me. There's a saying that you always make friends with equals.
Right.
We are not equals in any economic indicator. So I think that the two things that I have propagated that Pakistan must do is to really carry out its own independent assessment or economic work on Cpec. And I believe that there are inroads on that. Number two, we think, and I think some of us who have been talking about it, that fundamentally Pakistan should now tell China that it's time to pay some favors from early days. And Pakistan does have the depth of diplomacy that it should take the lead now on China's BNR and its own Cpec. Because we keep forgetting that the Belt and Road actually goes through Pakistan all the way to Africa.
Right.
And so I'll stop here on the economic front. There are many other views, but I think that those are the two words of caution.
Right, but in your opinion, you think that we have not, of course, China has taken the lead as far as till date, as far as Cpec is concerned, as far as, like you said, the diplomacy concerning the project is concerned. But isn't that also true, like you said, we are not equals. So a lot of that is due to that also.
Well, I think the main point here that I wanted to make is that this China would have done no matter what political dispensation was in power in Pakistan. So I think we should, allay this thing that somebody went and got Cpec for us.
Right.
China was going to do Cpec anyways. This is Xi's initiative. It was announced, and 70 countries have signed up to this, with varying measures. I'll give you one quick example. That is exact same coal-fired power plant that we're building is now completed in Kadrabad, Sahiwal. You have an equivalent replica of that in Bangladesh, though they're having problems setting it up because Bangladesh, of course, they do protest more than us.
Right.
So coming back, I think the key thing for us right now, it's not a question of being equals. It's actually a question about trying to understand how can we leverage Cpec? It's force majeure, it's happened.
Right.
So how can we take the good out of it?
Right. Javed Sahab, it's an interesting term that Ameer Sahab is used by saying that it's force majeure, it's already done, it's fait accompli, whatever. But that, you see, of course, that's in a good way as far as Pakistan is concerned. But do you think that, like he mentioned, are we carrying out the independent assessment that, a lot of people have said is the right time we should be carrying out on our own end rather than relying on whatever estimations China has given us or China is giving us?
I think undoubtedly this is a project of immense importance for Pakistan.
Right.
And I think in Pakistan's history, first time, such a massive investment is being done in Pakistan by China, who is a great friend of ours. But at the same time, I think some independent analysts and the critics or distractors of this project, they are saying that it has not been fully exposed to the people of Pakistan, the implications of this project, the economic and political implications.
Right.
So Mr. Hassn Iqbal, who is at the helm of affairs in this regard, he said that negative propaganda has been unleashed against this project.
Right.
But I think still it is the duty of the government and the Ministry of Planning and Development to come out with all the details and satisfy the critiques of this project because they have apprehensions. They think that at some stage during the process of the completion of Cpec and One Belt, One Road project, Pakistan could be overwhelmed by the Chinese might of its economy, and Pakistan would be reduced to a very small partner. So therefore, I think there is a need to explain to the people of Pakistan in what way the Cpec is going to be a beneficial project, how it is going to benefit the common people, how much jobs are going to be created for the people of Pakistan, because that's our problem. We are having huge young people. 63% of our population is of young people.
Right.
So therefore, will they get the jobs? Will they get the required training to be a part of this project? So all these things.
Do you think that we're in the danger of being swallowed up by a giant like China economically?
I've heard some politicians and some analysts saying that the mere size of China and its economy, growing economy, which is now the second largest economy of the world, is no match with Pakistan's economy. So there's a mismatch. But I think it's still China is our friend. It will not be damaging Pakistan's integrity and its solidarity, and it's it's going to safeguard the interest of Pakistan. But I think we still need to be cautious, and we have to be very careful as to how this project is to be completed and in what way it is going to benefit us. And will there be anything negative, or will there be a negative fallout of this project? So all these things have to be studied, discussed, and discussed openly, because some people, recently an English daily carried out an article which was very critical of this project. So these apprehensions have to be allayed by the Ministry of Planning and Development.
But Javed Sahab, it's interesting that you mentioned the fact that, China is our friend and therefore, we are safe. I mean, that is one way of looking at it. And recently, I had somebody, I'll come back to you on this. Let me go to Hassn Sahab also. Okay. Hassn Sahab, recently we had somebody compare the approach, the difference of approach between the West and China, where it was said that, China is more, they believe in benefiting both the parties rather than the West, which believes in getting the benefit out of you, sucking the benefit out of the other party, so to speak. I don't know how relevant or how true that analysis is. Do you think it's true? Do you think that it's enough for us to rely, think that China is our friend, so therefore, we're all safe? Or do you think that there is a basis for it, there is a difference in the Chinese approach from the West, that therefore we can rely on them?
And I've served in China for 4 years, and I've also served in Vietnam for similar time.
Right.
I believe China is a true friend. And when I say this, I've studied history of China, and as project director for Cpec and also working on different projects with China, I believe that China offers a lot to Pakistan, and they offer this because they consider Pakistan as their friend.
But of course, it has a huge potential for them.
It has, you know. When you're working on projects, and as a project manager, I would just highlight that when you're working on projects, you always do your own SWOT analysis. You look at your strengths, you look at your weaknesses, look at the opportunities, and look at the threats. Of course, threats would be there, but we must look at the opportunities that are existing based on our strengths and weaknesses. So if we, as we have done our homework right, and we are working on the opportunities, and similarly when there is change, and of course we call Cpec the game changer, and there would be change coming. With change, there are always risks, but should we stop working on projects? I believe we should make our risk mitigation plan well, and we are doing that. And based on that, I think Pakistan and China both can gain from Cpec, can gain from the Belt and Road Initiative, and this is win-win for both of our great countries.
Right. Ameer Sahab, do you think there's a difference of approach as far as the West and China is concerned?
Oh, absolutely. But I have to just posit one thing. In the theory of states or nation states, there are no friends.
Right.
Each nation guards their own economic interests. So the term that somebody is your friend as far as foreign relations goes is basically a kind of a term that's used to just express a certain amount of warmth.
Right.
I'll be very clear, China has been equally safeguarding its interests with India while being at war with India. China has equally taken over territories of Pakistan, and territorial disputes have been settled in the favor of China.
Right.
I have to make 2 points here. Pakistan as a nation has since 1980s started to undersell itself. And I think that's a national psyche which affects our take on the economic dilemmas that face Pakistan as a country. So I would think that the one thing, and I'm coming to your core question, which is that is China's approach different? So I always give an example of when the USSR was and the Iron Curtain was still up. There was the big bear and then was the little bear. So I think you remember the big bear.
Right.
It still is there in the form of Vladimir Putin. And I think you see the resurgence of the big bear. But it's interesting to study the role of China during the Cold War. China slowly went about its business while it let Russia take the massive amount of pressure from the West.
Right.
And I think that that showed that China actually has a very different doctrine. I mean, this is the land of Tao and Zen. Huh? So if you study a little bit of how Chinese think, they actually they believe in economic cooperation before they believe in war.
Right.
And in fact, if you read the China Daily this morning, there's a very nice article about the Belt and Road. And it basically was commenting on India not attending, and it actually quoted one of India's old books in the Hindu mythology, and basically which is a book which says it's better to make friends than war. Right. And so I think that China is a very deep philosophical society, and to basically say that they have a different approach, yes, they do. And I think it's actually good for the world to have that different approach.
But there's been a lot of talk about the fact that, you know, our local population, and Javed Sahab also mentioned this, there was earlier we were talking about it, how, you know, we have a dearth of jobs, we have a lot of young population, we do need a lot of employment in the country. Do you think that this, you know, our local population is in danger? As far as, you know, our languages is certainly a huge issue with the Chinese. You know, that is one issue we may face. Do you think we're doing anything about it? How important is it for us?
I think, again, some very good questions there. I think I'll pick up from the 63% youth population. I think we have to understand that the first thing is the person who is the guest in the country or invests in the country learns the language of the country. Right. So I'm less worried about, and I do absolutely have no respect for people who think we should learn Chinese. I think that the Chinese will give us jobs as long as we don't give them 100% control on businesses in Pakistan. They should not be allowed to have 100% control on companies, local companies. They should always have a partner. Number two, As far as the youth,
But you don't think the language is an issue at all?
I do not think. I've now been working on Cpec. I've been a subcontractor and a contractor to them, and I do not think the language is an issue. You can always hire Chinese to work for you at much cheaper rates than you can hire Pakistani educated people to work for you in Pakistan.
Right.
So I think that is something people are not noticing.
But won't the Chinese prefer to get their own people from across the border?
Well, so I'm going to help them. As a Pakistani, if I'm a partner, I will hire Chinese from there. You know, they work for much cheap.
But what about our Pakistani locals?
Well, let me now get to the Pakistani jobs. I think that we have a very different concept, and I think the government needs to have a rethink on this thing called "We will create jobs." This is a Trump slogan. I think it's an archaic slogan. What I see in Pakistan's youth is an emergence of entrepreneurship. I would like our youth to create jobs rather than find jobs. And I think that the blossoming of the SME sector, and this goes back to the basic thing, how are Pakistani youth, the 63% of people, what will they do with Cpec? So we do not have to think about how many jobs Cpec will create. We have to think about, are we skilling our youth properly to leverage the advantages of Cpec? I don't care if the Cpec, the factory doesn't hire 100 Pakistanis. Nothing that Cpec is doing is bound to create jobs. Right. It's the outfall, the spillover, the peripheral effects when we have such massive, I mean, take energy for example. If you have core energy stability, automatically your SME sector goes up. It's one of the biggest problems that we have in Pakistan right now for industry. Right. For any youth, for any entrepreneur, you know, the first thing they have to do, the poor guys, is to put UPSs or generators.
35 billion is dedicated to energy. I think that's the...
Can I just comment on the status of the projects? You know, when Cpec was being conceived in 2013 during the inaugural visit of our Honorable Prime Minister, it was decided that we'll work on easier projects first. We had identified the bottlenecks in our economy, and we wanted to remove those bottlenecks first so that economy could grow the way it is growing now.
Right.
And based on that, the timelines that were given were initially early harvest, and then we had short-term, medium-term and long-term projects. And in the early harvest projects, we had identified the energy projects, and inshallah by 2018 we would have 6,000 megawatt of energy available in the circuit, and that would cater for the scarcity of energy that we have. So
and total, and as I understand it, just for clarification, 35 billion is dedicated to energy projects.
Yeah, 34.97 is the total amount, and that's in IPP mode. Right. And also with infrastructure developing, we believe that by 2018 the western and the eastern corridors would be completed by end of 2013. So with these two major bottlenecks of energy and infrastructure develop, we believe now is the time that the industrial development or industrial cooperation phase should begin, and it has begun. We have already have one joint working group meeting of the industrial groups on both sides, both Chinese and Pakistan. The industrial cooperation is being led by Board of Investment under Miftah Sahab, and now Chinese experts are expected to come maybe in June this year. Each province is working on their industrial zones. We have identified, actually approved 9 economic zones in each part of our country, and with them developing the way they are and the amount of enthusiasm being there in each province, as I see as project director, and with the Chinese coming in, we are also encouraging, coming to the point that just been highlighted, we are also encouraging joint ventures between Pakistanis and China, so that our capacity could be developed, and also we could take advantage of the supply chain within
so that whole point about Ameer Sahab and entrepreneurship and
yeah, we're working on that because we believe that SME sector is the main sector that we should work on, and that can bring change in Pakistan.
And you think that you're on schedule as far as the project, because that's also one of the criticisms.
As far as early harvest projects, yes, we are on schedule. As far as removing the initial bottlenecks, yes, we are on projects.
Right. Let me go to Javed Sahab. Javed Sahab, in your opinion, this is the first time that we've seen the 4 chief ministers of the country traveling with the PM to China as far as the Cpec is concerned, and we've seen that that whole earlier criticism about how one province was perhaps being given a larger benefit out of it than the others seems to have been dealt with effectively. Do you agree? I mean, that doesn't seem relevant any longer. In your opinion, is that true?
I think it was a very positive message to the Chinese, because the Chinese were worried that there is a house divided here.
Right, because there's a difference of government.
And in various provinces
also
have been raising their voice against this project. They had
Right.
their reservations and they expressed it very openly. But this time around, I think the Prime Minister took a wise step by taking these 4 chief ministers with him, because that was a united front from
Right.
Pakistan side. So
Right.
I think it's a great move on the part of the Prime Minister. But I believe that still there are some questions which need to be answered.
Right.
You know, and those questions are relating to exactly the role of China. I mean, some people think that this project, Cpec, is more in the economic interest of China than it is in the interest of the country,
Right,
Pakistan.
right.
So the people who are handling it, managing it,
Right.
they should come out with a very with an explanation which satisfies all corners, all circles who are critical of this project. Some people, as my friend was mentioning here, that given at the history of China, starting from Sun Tzu, Dr. Sun Tzu, the great philosopher and strategist of China, Chinese have followed the policy of peace within and peace without. So there is no apprehension that China will try to browbeat Pakistan or will try to overwhelm with its size of economy and other factors and other tools.
So you think that's baseless?
That's not possible. I think Chinese are more friendly to Pakistan, but obviously instinctively they will try to guard and protect their own core economic interests.
Right.
So no country is going to compromise these interests. So we have to be very careful about it. The Chinese will definitely protect their own interests, but at the same time, we have to ensure that Pakistan's interests are also protected and guarded. And Pakistan needs to take full benefit of this project and the investment that is coming through this project, the energy sector and other sectors, the corridors which are being built, the road project and other projects, the Gwadar port itself, which is a very essential part of this whole scheme or the project. So therefore, I think we have to keep an eye on everything, that everything that happens under this project, this Cpec, is in the interest of the country, and Pakistan's economic interests are protected, because the future is going to pose major economic challenges to Pakistan, the youth bulge that we are facing, and other problems that we are going to face in future, the increase in exports and other areas where we are actually looking at right now that Pakistan's economy, we are claiming that Pakistan's economy is growing, and some good news is being given to people that Pakistan's economy and GDP
Of
is
course,
growing.
we're telling people
So
that it's going to
all
change
this,
things for them
this has to
in
be
a
done
phenomenal way.
practically, so that the people in Pakistan are benefited from it, and everybody realizes that the great friend China has done something positive for us.
Right, right. Hassn Saab, it's very interesting what Javed Saab is saying. Of course, we've been hearing about this, how good it is, how phenomenal it will be for Pakistan, and inshallah, we hope that it will be. But considering the stakes that Pakistan has in it, what we expect out of it, don't you think that there should have been better narrative building? Considering that, it should have laid to rest a lot of the stuff that is, now being raised, a lot of the issues that are now being raised, a lot of propaganda, negative propaganda that is coming out should have been dealt with through a narrative building, the positive narrative building in a more aggressive way perhaps, and also, media management to a certain extent, because we have huge stakes in this economically.
It's always been positive narrative as far as Cpec is concerned. Everybody believe within Pakistan. I think this is one point on which everybody agrees that it's a game changer for Pakistan. And you just mentioned that this was the first time that all chief ministers went to, but in December 2016, Pakistan again demonstrated consensus as far as Cpec is concerned when all the chief ministers visited for the 6th JCC.
But that was a move that we had to undertake because a lot of it was an issue that was being raised.
Yeah.
it was a criticism that was coming out. So it had to be dealt with,
yes.
I guess.
So what I mean to
manner.
say is that each step as we move along the Cpec and as project progress and good news keep coming in, and once this early harvest project would be completed,
Right.
you would see concerns of different sectors of
Right.
of our society being addressed.
Right.
We are working on a campaign, but of course, at one place where you have friends, you always have people not so happy about
Right, and definitely,
Cpec.
we have a hostile neighbor right across
Of
the
course,
border.
and,
so
and
is-
that reminds me of a point that in terms of disputes, if there are any.
Right.
Vietnam has territorial dispute, but they are in Obor. Their representation was there in the Belt and Road Forum.
Right.
So Pakistan, being a friend, should not fear as much as maybe some of us do. As I said earlier, with these projects, there would be transformation. Yes, there would be transformation in the way that we do our business, in the way that we work,
Right.
but that would be towards positive. And whenever there is change, there are fears, but leadership is there. People are working together to bring change and make our country
Right. As great
as great
possible,
as it
inshallah.
is.
Ameer Saab, do you think there's been enough narrative building in your opinion?
Well, I mean, I have one view on this, and it is just my personal view. Even if you gloss over things, people will not believe you. And I think that currently Pakistani people, the general populace, don't believe.
But don't you think that, I'm sorry, just to cut you short, but don't you think that, there are times, like for instance, the criticism that comes, it's not always genuine. And,
No.
we've had,
I think
like I
that,
said,
you
there
see,
is, India is
is-
always behind a lot of controversies in our country. That's a fact,
But let's keep India out of the equation. Let me
Right.
just posit the following thing. There's an old saying, where there is smoke, there's a fire, right?
Right.
So when this happens, all I'm saying is that the narrative of Belt and Road, if I was to do it, and I was to do it properly as part of the Planning Commission, as part of the Prime Minister's entourage who manages media, what I would actually do is explain the pits and falls, the pros and cons. Let me start with the Belt and Road itself. The road is not a land road. The road is actually a sea road. It is China's plan to protect all its economic seaways
Right.
with its military might.
Right.
And Gwadar is strategic because currently in Djibouti, they have a Chinese frigate standing. There will be Chinese frigates here. So let's accept that as part of our friendship, we accepted on TV that we have bases of US in Pakistan. We've kept them for a long time.
Right.
Let's tell the public what is it that's happening on the military side. Let's tell the public what are the pros and cons of this, why we are choosing. The second part of the narrative, which is how to build the narrative. And that's where I personally think Pakistan never had a plan. You were taken by surprise. You got a call. You said, let's run to China. And you basically started doing this. Chinese planned it properly. So again, coming back, where is the great detailed economic work on this? So that's where the narrative will be built. Now, as far as I understand, the Chinese say to even the Planning Commission that they will help build the narrative.
Right.
Well, if they do that, then the impartiality is gone.
Right.
I think it's time that we actually build this economic narrative as Pakistanis. And the last point on this is that,
And is there, do you think that technically we can have a joint narrative? Our narrative should of course be different, whatever, we are partners and all, but our narrative should be separate from the Chinese anyway.
It
which
should.
should be, about benefit
Absolutely.
to Pakistan, about to us, not,
But
not
what we
related
are
to-
missing is that you can't tell, even my child, if you tell them it's a hunky-dory world, they know it's not.
Right.
Because there's always some problem. The world is full of problems and it's full of solutions.
Right, but Ameer Saab, the Prime Minister specifically mentioned a cost-benefit analysis, and
What
consider-
cost-benefit analysis?
No, he did mention in his speech that,
Which
as
cost-benefit analysis?
as far as Cpec is concerned, for
There is
example.
none.
There is none. You think there's no cost to Pakistan at all?
No, sorry. You said cost-benefit analysis.
No, I mean that cost-benefit analysis of the Cpec, for example. Like you said that it's a hunky-dory world and, nobody would believe you on that. So even if we are undertaking the project to some cost to us, however small or however, unimportant, but there may be some.
So we
for
should
us
highlight-
to weigh the pros and cons or the cost-benefit, whatever, we may call it.
If I may,
Right.
the only thing which I'm saying is let's put these costs on the table
Right.
Let them be analyzed. There is nothing to hide here, right? I mean, the two facts have been established. China tries to be an economic hegemon before it will try to be a military hegemon.
Right, right.
But please understand that it will do the same thing in a different way. They may do it with a smile on their face, while we have been subject to the West for the previous parts of our history without smiles on their faces. So eventually the story is going to turn out the same way. So we should learn how we dealt the mistakes of our previous dealing with the West and say, oh, we have a friend here. Let's not destroy this friendship by having this problem. And how do you make that problem go away? By having an open narrative.
Right.
Yeah, don't go out and say this is wrong, this is wrong. Go, ask the people, please bring the proof. We are willing to listen. That's the narrative I think which we need to create.
Right. Javed Sahab, Ameer Sahab is saying that, we should ask the people whether, whenever these conspiracy theories, for example, are thrown back and forth, we should be asking the people to bring the proof. But, it's not always that easy when you're dealing with your political, politically it's not easy. And considering the fact that, there are different political parties in power in different provinces, for example, in Sindh and KPK, there are a lot of issues for the government to handle. So is that a viable solution in your opinion, to expect that, there should be proof? Because, we haven't been able to find proof of anything, so to
I
speak.
think there are two parts. One
Right.
is that there has to be a consensus, and I think largely there is a consensus among Pakistan,
Right.
people of Pakistan, and among political parties of this country, that this project, the Cpec, is in the interest of Pakistan.
As realistic as perhaps we should have expected.
It is. And we have never in the history of this country seen an investment of this scale.
Right.
I mean, we are talking about $35 billion investment in power projects, and then we are trying to build roads, and as he has mentioned, the sea lanes that are projected to be
Right.
built in future, because they are going to be a part of this project. So it's a huge, massive investment in Pakistan.
Right.
And the details of how this investment is going to benefit the 4 provinces of this country, because the chief ministers have their own appetite for a good news. They want to be satisfied as to how they are going to benefit from it, how
Right.
their provinces are going to benefit from this project, what benefit is going to accrue to them. So these are the key questions, and I think it is the duty of the Prime Minister and his cabinet and other people, Mr. Hassn Iqbal, who is the contact person in this context, they should come out with explanation, and they should try to allay the fears of all these circles, and they must also address these apprehensions. There is no doubt that this project is in the interest of Pakistan, and Pakistan is going to benefit hugely from it. But how? And I think it is the duty of the government and the leaders to
Right.
satisfy the people, so that there is nothing left behind, no apprehension is there about this project. And recently, I think they came out with explanations, but they were not fully, many things have not been fully explained to the people. There are still questions being raised.
Like, for
in
instance,
media.
one of the questions that was being raised was that, all right, 34.9 or 35 billion dollars
Energy
are
projects.
being, just
And the
dedicated
energy.
to energy.
Yes.
But once we get that, we will not need it. So, we will not need that energy, because we don't have the kind of, we don't have the demand. We will have the supply, but we
No,
won't have the
this
demand.
is a very
so to
important
speak.
question again, that
Right.
if we are producing excess of energy,
Right.
and there are no consumers,
Right.
then what's going to happen? So somebody has to explain to the people, or the people who are raising this question, that we need this energy in future, because we are going to expand our industrial base, and we are going to set up more industries.
Right.
Or the GDP growth will necessitate to produce more electricity in this country. So therefore, I think the question is very genuine, and therefore an answer has to be given to it.
Right. Ameer Sahab, I can see that you.
Yeah, I mean, thank you, because I think I want to add to that. I think
Right.
that this whole thing about saying that there is going to be no demand is a fracas.
Right.
I mean, this is not possible. Do you know the gap between Pakistan and the rest of the world average? Pakistan average consumption is 450 kilowatt hours per capita.
Right.
The average globally is 3,000 plus.
Right.
So there is, they'll suck this up. Yeah, I mean, it just means even if we just all run our ACs and things work fine, we'll still suck it up.
Right.
The story which is not being told is that I think we should have come out in the open that the transmission line upgrade
Right.
by NTDC is delayed. Machari is only recently signed, right? The financial close and everything. I was with China State Grid just 2 weeks ago in Beijing, and I can tell you that they are scrambling because they will produce this power and it will not have a way to get to the grid. Number one.
Transmission
Number two,
of energy.
Yeah,
Right.
and this is not China's job. Is our ESCOs, their substations, their grids are substandard. So this is almost like saying I'm going to produce energy and then it's going to go waste. No, that's not the storyline.
Right,
The thing is,
okay.
you just don't have the way to transmit it.
Right. Let me take Hassn Saab's opinion. That Hassn Saab, do you think that how do you see the transmission problem being?
No,
resolved?
well, I'll
Is it-
take the narrative part first.
Right.
My presence here, as
Right,
as
of
being
course.
member
Of course.
and being the project director at Ministry of Planning, speaks for itself.
Right.
And similarly, as we speak, the minister is in Lahore. And before coming here, I was in a university, talking about Cpec and the opportunities and of course the threats for
Right.
Pakistan. So, we reach out. We do talk about the concern. We do talk about the opportunities that are there, and we also talk about the threats that are there. And based on that, we plan and some of the legitimate concern, we also work on them
Right.
within our own. We also have our center of excellence. We keep one of the major tasks is to look at the concern which are there, and of course that
Yeah.
speaks for itself. As far as all the projects are concerned, why just talk about energy? I'll talk about all the
Right,
projects,
right. Fair enough.
including
Fair
the
enough.
infrastructure.
Right.
Some would argue that why have two corridors? Why, what about the tolling part of it, and what would be the cargo be? And why have why have 4 lanes instead of 6 lanes?
Right.
Because we won't be consuming that. That has been worked out. The energy requirement has been worked out. Like in any projects, there could be delays, but there are constraints which you have to work. You have to work on the scope, you have to work on the cost, you have to work on the time, and these constraints remain in any project. So as project managers which are working on the field, all the engineers, all managers as project managers are aware of this fact. They're
Right.
working to remove these constraints and bring the project according to timeline. They will always be delayed, but there would always be strength on which you can work and work on these constraints. And
Right.
of course, we have energy. We will have energy. We need energy because we are a growing economy.
Right.
And when economy grows, there would always be requirement for electricity. And of course, we are working on the transmission line. The delays are known, and that's the best part. And we're working on it. And we, along with the line ministry, the Ministry of Water and Power, along with all the other stakeholders, are
Right.
continuing. We have progress review meeting every month, and based on that, wherever we see delay, we address the issues. So I think we are working on that, and
In your opinion, of course, like you said, there are delays. There may be delays, but you are dealing with them effectively.
yes, and we have a mechanism. As I
Right.
said, we have progress review meeting monthly. We also have joint working group, established joint working group, which will be again assembling soon, and we have joint working group on Chinese side, and then we have joint coordination committee, overlooking the projects from a higher perspective. So based on that, and then we have the leadership on both sides.
Right.
Who are
Who are very committed to, of course,
very
ensuring
committed
that
to
this
very
project
committed
goes.
to on Chinese side to the Belt and Road Initiative, and Pakistan side on Cpec, because the leadership believes that there are opportunities, and we on our level as project directors and managers, we are committed to
But in
realizing
terms of,
this
in
dream.
your experience, and this is my last question to you, but in your opinion, do you think that it's realistic, the kind of timelines you're expecting, the way that you are expecting this project to go forward? Do you think that
I believe they're very realistic, and
Right.
I believe the early harvest project in themselves are being completed on time.
Right. Right.
and we would have energy by 2018. And now with this Belt and Road Forum, the grant MOU was also signed for the airport project at Gwadar, the expressway framework was also signed, ML1, the mainline 1 railway upgradation project was also, the framework agreement and the MOU was signed. So lots of activities are, and they would generate jobs.
Right.
Any fair guess would see, with ML1 coming after more than 80 years being,
Right,
improved, they would create jobs.
So you think that it's safe to assume that this?
I believe that it's safe to assume that it would bring.
But
sorry, please.
Right, Javed.
My apprehension is that given the size of this project, huge, the capacity is an issue. And many donors which have been giving aid to Pakistan, World Bank, Asian Development, other countries in the past, they have always expressed their concerns about Pakistan's capacity to do things, to complete projects.
Yeah.
A huge amount of money which was given to us, funds which were given to us, they remained unutilized, so, because we didn't have the capacity to do it. So therefore, I think we also need to focus on the capacity of our institutions, our people, so that they are able to complete these projects, because the Chinese are very good at that.
Right.
And I think we need a matching capacity and the ability to do
Right,
it.
Hassn sahab,
I just want to conclude by saying that we're working on capacity building, we're working on consortium building, we're working on improving our vocational centers. Vocational center at Gwadar would be state-of-the-art vocational center. Also, as we speak, we're working on a consortium of top business schools from Chinese side and 5 top business schools on Pakistan side.
The collaboration.
And we're helping on that collaboration so that they could advise us in taking this project forward. So I think we're working on.
Can I just add one last thing?
Right.
I think I want to make 3 quick points. The first is the BBA and MBA degrees are going to be obsolete in 5 years to 10 years. There's a big McKinsey study. No need to get business schools together. Number 2, the biggest question we have right now, and I am a full supporter of this initiative, right? But we have to answer the debt liability and the contingent liability question immediately. Our finance minister has been unable to give one straight answer. And I think the Planning Commission, it's high time, should step in, conduct the economic work, take it out of finance, and get the result out in the paper.
Right. And that is, I think, something that Hassn sahab, that is the question probably that you will provide us the answer to.
Surely.
And we will hear it.
When you'll have me next time, I would
right.
be glad to give you
of course, there are the papers.
Because we're running short of time this time.
Right. Unfortunately, that's all the time that we have. Thank you so much for giving us your time. Thank you for joining us today. Whether we agree or not, of course, this is a huge project. It has huge potential for Pakistan. And the government, the Prime Minister, the 4 Chief Ministers of the provinces all seem geared towards ensuring its completion within a timely manner. Like said earlier, it is true that the delays, there might be delays, but that does not mean that it will deter Pakistan in its quest for progress as far as Cpec is concerned. Thank you so much for joining us today on Perspective.